Hey guys, Bicebump here, bringing you my first video on the Dragonflight Alpha. So, woke up this morning, saw a Wowhead article about Unholy Death Knight talent tree plans, and reading through this, I just got incredibly excited. Honestly, this is great news. I feel like they've addressed a large number of pain points I previously had with the trees, and I feel like the general design just gives you the vibe that they kind of know what we want and what they are doing. So, very excited. Let's have a look through the entire post, talk about the different aspects, why they're good, why some of them might not be as good, but I'm not sure we're going to find those. Anyway, let's just jump straight to it. So, we've got our blue post from Kyvax here. Hello Death Knights, we'd like to kick things off here with a talk about some future plans for both the core and Unholy Death Knight trees. So this is going to be both the core trees for all the Death Knights and then the Unholy specific spec tree. While all specs can expect iteration as we navigate through Alpha and beyond, this update will focus on the two trees mentioned. Alright, so in the next week's Alpha, you can expect to see an updated layout to the core tree. In its current iteration, the tree feels a little too linear. That is very much true. You remember the previous tree just had 3 lines and you can't really move across anything. So great that they acknowledge that. With lower variance in customization as you progress down one of the branches of the tree. This is also true. The fact that it was so linear meant that you didn't have much choice. There weren't that many paths you could take to reach your goal. To alleviate this, we've added connecting nodes to the Blood branch from both the Frost and Unholy sides of the core tree before the first gate. This is then, you can see down here, these two connections. I feel like previously we had these 2 triangles here to one side, which were just terrible. Like, you would never want to pick up those. They had this generic trait, and then you had like a corpse, explosion, and some other like Wraithwalk behind them. It was just too much an investment to actually get to those points. So it's great that they created those connections. And one after the second gate. Right, we also got connections down here. So you can see there's lots more diagonal connections. And importantly, this means that, for instance, you can start out at Frost, move down, and even though you went Frost initially, you can actually go sideways, reach Abomination Limb, and even the extra Blood trait down here. You can't go all the way sideways, which I think is kind of fine, but still, there's lots more room to now move around and pick up different paths and whatever. We're also adding more notes about the first gate to add some more flexibility when picking up utility options. That's good. We're also doing some talent rearrangements to fix dependency issues, preventing players from picking up talents with 0 value based on the prior picks. There's a work in progress picture that might give a better idea. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about exactly what happened here. So we have the old tree over here, and as I said, we have lots of linearity, not a lot of moving parts. We have these 2 triangle nodes which were quite bad. Compare that to the new one, right? So much more movement. I probably won't get all of these right, but let's just talk about the good things. So, first of all, we have Blinding Sleet, Permafrost, Death Pact, Death's Advance, Sacrificial Pact is this one, and then that's the reduction, and they're all very accessible at the start, right? You could go any path at start and it would be kind of fine. There's lots of options. We get Death's Advance much earlier. This is great news. Previously we had to kind of commit quite hard into Blood 3 to actually get that, so seeing that further up is great. And now I feel like there's situational choice here in the first row. You obviously, for the Frost bit, you have improved Mind Freeze, which leads lower cooldown when interrupt and some runic power. You have Permafrost for kind of like general tankiness, and you have Blinding Sleet for specific kind of CC. For Death Knight, we have Death's Advance, probably always going to pick up that. But we also have Death Pact and improved AMS, which are also great options. And I feel if you have some leftover points, these are definitely some points you could, some talents you could actually pick up. Finally, Unholy, that's a bit lackluster. Sacrificial Pact isn't really used, it's not useful at all. Control Undead, same thing there, only had niche use, and currently as Unholy we don't want to use it because it kind of ruins our current ghoul. And we have that new talent, which just gives some passive DR. So you're probably going to default pick into that one, generally. I was thinking earlier, you know, should we just ignore and not pick up anything here? But we do have the next trade, which gives that passive damage increase. So I think we are actually going to have to pick up one of these in order to get that damage increase. But there are cases when you might not want to. It depends on how well tuned that one is. Anyway, moving on to the next section. We have, let's see, Unholy Tree is still quite lackluster. This is Might of Thrasian, I think, so it gives some extra strength. This is the Death Grip / Death and Decay slow choice, Lichborn, and the D&D Haste. I can see a case where you simply don't go far into this, so you just pick up the passive strength and then just ignore the other spells. Passive, like Haste on Death and Decay isn't that great, maybe for AoE, but in single target it doesn't make it worthwhile to pick up Death and Decay, so might not do that. Which ends up that you just kind of just stop early in the Unholy Tree, but now that there are connections, that's kind of fine. As you can see, the Blood Tree still have AMZ, affects the Wraithwalk, and then improved AMZ, the one that gives you runic power, yeah? And I can foresee that we pick up all of these, because we can then go down to Wool of Necropolis, awesome talent by the way, into the Unholy Bond that improves the Rune Forgers, and then finally the Soul Reaper. So we can now avoid this kind of like mediocre part of the tree and take a route around it, which I think is a great thing. On the Frost Tree, looks the same as previously essentially. We have the increased crit, we have the Chains of Ice Cleave, we have IBF duration, then we have runic empowerment, runic corruption. That is so powerful, we're always going to go down that part of the tree. And then further down we have lots of choices. I just think overall, there is so much more choice in this tree. And there's lots of instances where we can pick up situational utility. I think I need to play around with this a little bit on the calculator to figure out how many extra points we actually have. But huge improvement overall. That's all I'm saying. See, in the core tree, we're going to move forward with some known bugs. While most things that aren't actually working should be marked as not yet implemented, we missed one of the Empower Rune Weapon adding charges for Frost. This was the thing where if you didn't pick up Empower Rune Weapon here to the left side and you picked up Empower Rune Weapon on the Spec tree, you wouldn't get Empower Rune Weapon at all. So they're just fixing out a bug there. It's currently not giving a charge if you learn it in both the core and Frost tree. Yeah, there's some weirdness there. This will be fixed in future alpha builds. Alright, Rune Strike is intended to only be available prior to choosing a spec. Each of the spec's first talent choices should replace Rune Strike. This will be fixed in a future build. That's fine. Rune Strike is just what you get before level 10, I think, so that you have something to spend runes on. A bit weird for Frost, which just gets Chains of Eyes, but I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, don't care too much either. Now, let's move on to Unholy. So as we move into future builds, we want to tackle two main issues we've heard about from the community. The first is the issue of cooldown desyncs, which is caused by a few different talents and some oddly time-based cooldowns. This is a huge one, I think, because in Shadowlands, we kind of had this cooldown reduction dance going on. We have Dark Transformation, base cooldown is 1 minute. We reduce it down to 45 seconds by using Death Call. We have Unholy Blight, 45-second base, and that's kind of like the 45-second cooldown window we are aiming for. We also have Apocalypse, which starts out at, I don't know, 1 minute 20 seconds something, and then it's reduced further by Army of the Damned talent and Convocation of the Dead conduit. So you have Army of the Dead, right, which also gets cooldown reduction from the Army of Damned talent. There's just so much cooldown reduction going on, and it just means that you kind of, if the fight flows nicely, everything kind of aligns and all is well and lovely. But whenever you get downtime, whenever you have to run away from boss, so there's some kind of intermission in the fight, everything just gets messed up. And I don't think it's kind of fun gameplay to have to deal with that. It just creates annoyance, really. So it's great that they have thought about this. This will be our first priority. Great. Secondly, after these changes make it into alpha, we will want to tackle the overall structure of Unholy's talent layout. The tree layout changing will take some time, but we want to give an early heads up that we're actively looking at it, and you can expect changes in the future. Also great news. If you read my Wowhead post, you will know that I don't like the current layout. It doesn't make sense in many ways. Like Deathcore buffing talents don't interact with each other at all in the tree. You can pick up one but not the other in each case. We have some weird, like, infected claws is just in the wrong place. It doesn't interact with anything close to it. Some stuff like that. So I'm happy they're looking at it, and I hope they can produce some nice, better iteration. Anyway, our initial goals with this include update the cooldowns on Unholy to better sync with each other and prevent the dreaded desync issues the spec has seen. Generally, we should expect 45, 90, 180 second cooldowns for Unholy. Great news. I think it's just lovely if they fix the cooldowns, make them work on the 45-second cycle, so you don't need to actually care about desunking. And the only thing that this cooldown reduction introduces is just pain whenever you get downtime. So removing that is all good news in my book. Reduce the number of RNG mechanics the spec has to deal with. I think this is good, because I think the first iteration of Unholy and Dragonflight had this lots of RNG related to wound building and bursting, and I don't feel like we need more RNG. We already have some RNG with, you know, applying 2 or 3 wounds with festering wounds, and we have some RNG when we get sudden doom procs, and I feel like that's kind of a fine, at good level. If we go beyond that level, it's going to turn into like a casino feel, right? Don't want that. So it's great that they know that's an issue. Restructure the tree layout to include removing some talents, updating existing talents, and adding new talents. We mentioned some of these changes below, but this will not be comprehensive of all changes coming. Okay. Now, some changes to expect in the future alpha build. Deadly Coil reduces the runic power cost of Death Core by 5/10. That was 1 and 2 ranks. This talent will be removed as a talent and wrapped into Death Core baseline. Great news. Like, if you guys play single target using Friends of Monstrosity in Shadowlands, you will know that 45 runic power baseline Death Core feels really bad to play with. It just makes the spec feel really clunky, you get lots of downtime, and it just makes it unfun. So reducing Death Core costs down to 35 as a baseline is a great thing, because it means that Unholy will just flow better, be more fun to play. Deadly Coil has become quite important to how smooth the Unholy spec rotation feels, and at this point is better served baseline as a talent that can be opt-in or out of. Yes, I agree. Unholy Command. Damage dealt by Death Core reduces the cooldown of Dark Transformation. This talent will now read Dark Transformation's cooldown is reduced by 8/15 seconds. Great news. So this essentially means that you talent into cooldown syncing instead of, you know, playing into cooldown syncing. So you pick up 2 talents here, means Dark Transformation goes down to 45 seconds and can then align with Holy Blight. But in a similar fashion, if you don't want to pick up on Holy Blight, you can ignore this cooldown reduction and don't kind of care as much about it. I think this is a great way of doing it, that you can pick up your talents in such a way that you change the cooldown window syncing time. So if you want 45-second cooldowns, you can pick it up. If you don't care that much about having every 45 seconds, you can avoid those talents, that kind of thing. We'll see. Maybe in AoE you might not pick up Unholy Blight, and then you can avoid picking up DT cooldown reduction. I don't know. We'll see. Infectious Wound. Festering Strike has a 20% increased chance of applying 1, 2, 3 additional Festering Wounds. This talent will be cut or reworked. Also great news. I highlighted this in the Wowhead post that getting lots of extra wounds from Festering Strike can feel really bad in our rotation, because it means that if you want to avoid overcapping, which is generally something you want to do, we have to play really low on our wounds, because it's only really safe to hit Festering Strike at 0 wounds to avoid overcapping, right? And that means it's much more difficult to set up Apocalypse, because playing at low wounds means it's difficult to, you know, hit 4 wounds when you want to hit Apocalypse. It's just a pain. So it's great that they're gonna redo this one. Hopefully, might just by default make Festering Wound apply 3/4 wounds. I don't know. We'll see what they do, but it's great that they're gonna change this one up. Epidemic. Damage to be buffed. With a new talent that allows Death Core to cleave, the line on when to Epidemic and when not to Epidemic has been widened. This is not ideal. With the changes to Unholy Command and the damage increased to Epidemic, this should help cement Epidemic's position at 4 targets. So the main issue here comes from, as I said, Death Core cleave. So since Death Core can hit 2 targets, it means that it much more heavily competes with Epidemic in AoE situations. So I think it makes a lot of sense to buff Epidemic so that you don't encounter situations where you're just going to use Death Call all the time and never use Epidemic. So that's also great news. Now, Army of the Damned, Death Call reduces the cooldown of Apocalypse by 1 second and Army of the Dead by 5 seconds, and summon mages of dead. This will be updated to reduce the cooldown of Apocalypse by a flat 45 seconds, and no longer be reduced by Death Call Epidemic. This change will smooth out the cooldowns of Unholy to match our initial 45, 90, 80 second cooldown windows. We are considering what to do with Army of the Dead portion of the talent. Having the mastery of maximizing your Death Call cast to give you a chance of another Army of the Dead in an encounter feels like a great skill and mechanical hook for the talent while not completely harming your rotational impact of the way Apocalypse did. This is spot on. I feel like having this binary Apocalypse being 90 or 45 is a great change. Right, the whole point of this talent is to bring Apocalypse down to 45 seconds. In Shadowlands, that is done by doing cooldown reduction where you have to actively do it. But I'm very happy that it's just done baseline, because then you don't need to worry about desyncing and so on. And you still get that specific value, which is one of the reasons we pick up this talent. Army of the Dead cooldown being based on Death Call, I would be kind of fine with that, because I like that playstyle. I would also be happy if they just cut the cooldown in half to 4 minutes. So that's all fine, because that's effectively what we get now. The effective army cooldown with Army of the Damned is 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes, and I'm fine if they would just cut it to that point instantly. Summon Gargoyle. Currently, Summon Gargoyle does not feel like it rises to a capstone talent. That is very much true. It is very weak. And we have a few ideas in mind to better solve that. First, we plan to buff Gargoyle to better perform and shine in single target scenarios, and also move it higher into the tree to be a little more accessible when the situation calls for its need. I think this is great news that Gargoyle moves up, because it makes it much easier to pick it up. Like, as soon as something becomes a capstone talent, you have to invest heavily into getting it. If it's further up, you can kind of pick it up without as much cost. Secondly, we want to introduce a new and more powerful ability in this capstone position. As an example, Dark Transformation empowers the Gargoyle and Army of the Dead for 20 seconds, increasing the damage by 50%. A talent such as this does a better job of capping a build that heavily focuses on Dark Transformation and your pets. This is true. This effect is a great one. It used to be a Legion legendary effect, Tharax shoulders, I don't know, that we used to play with Dark Arbiter, and it's a great effect in my opinion. It makes Dark Transformation feel more impactful to press, and it also makes it feel that you have more agency over your pet damage. Like, if you run a BFA, using your Army of the Dead felt quite bad, because you just pressed the button and then you did not interact with it in any way. I like when you press Army of the Dead and then you kind of actively buff it, because it feels like the damage it does is attributed to you instead of the army itself. Similar to now, when you use Army, we use Blight, we use Soul Reaper with the 4 set to kind of buff it. I very much enjoy the feeling of, agency there. And I really hope they actually implement that Dark Transformation edition. Hopefully with all pets. So it's not only Gargoyle and Army of Dead. They could just be pressing Dark Transformation, increase your pet damage by 50% for 20 seconds, That is a great talent, I would say. Alright, finally, tree structure. The current tree has a few less than ideal dependency issues that we're looking to solve to prevent trap talent builds where we can. This is when you don't pick up a talent, and then you pick up another one which kind of assumed you pick up the first one. Kind of like Death Call talents, which I don't think aligns well. I think that's what they're meaning. The tree could also be a little bit more connected to allow for a bit more flexibility as you spec out your Unholy DK. As an example, Cloning Shadow's current positioning feels a bit too restrictive at the moment. I agree on this one as well. Cloning Shadows is such a great talent. I would like to be able to pick that up more easily. And I think it's a talent that fits in kind of like the center of the tree, that it doesn't kind of interact with any specific build. So I feel like having it centrally would be nice. Thank you all for ongoing feedback, it's greatly appreciated, and we look forward to more as we iterate throughout the testing period. Alright, that was everything. So, you probably realized this already, but I love this. I feel like all these changes, they point to a dev that kind of knows what the players want and understands what the spec needs to, how the spec needs to change in order to play well. So very excited to try out these changes once I get alpha, hopefully soon. See how it plays, and then also very excited for further iterations, because this just shows me that they listen to very specific feedback, and I think they are really trying to make Unholy a fun spec to play in Dragonflight. Anyway, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought about these changes. Are you excited? Do you feel like they were lackluster? What else do you want to see? Upvote, downvote. You can always message me on the Acros Discord if you have any questions. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more content. Thank you.